Peace be with you. This video is on importance of remembrance of God, Dhikr in Arabic. Dhikr, or remembrance of God, is important because we cannot govern our lives in accordance to what God wants without this. It's a lot easier to do evil than it is to do good. It's easier to lie when there are consequences for telling the truth. It's easier to fall into temptation, when there's an easy way to make money, even though it might be haram. It's easier to indulge into desire than it is to restrain ourselves from it. So evil is easier. Although some of us may want to be good, still evil is easier. So dhikr, or remembrance of God, is necessary for us to achieve that state to where when we are faced with a situation, we make the right decision. So you have to remember God in all instances of your life, and without this you cannot be successful, because it will always be easier to do evil, to fulfill our own selfish desires, than it is to do the right thing, what God commanded. To this end, toward dhikr, toward remembrance of God, God has given us prayer. And this is why any Muslim cannot be successful without prayer. It's not that, prayer is somehow counts as brownie points. It doesn't. Prayer is a tool, and that tool, it is a way toward dhikr, toward remembrance of God, and that's what the Quran tells us. Like, for example, in the 20th chapter of the Quran, verse 14, when God is talking to Moses, he says, "Surely I am God, there is no God but I, therefore serve me and keep up prayer for my remembrance." And also in the 29th chapter of the Quran, verse 45, we are told, "And recite that which has been revealed to you from your Lord and keep up prayer." Surely prayer keeps away from indecency and evil, and remembrance of God, dhikr of Allah, is akbar, is greatest, and God knows what you do. So we need to remember God in order to govern our lives, and we need to pray in order to remember God. Without that, it's impossible to remember God as we should remember God. And the Quran tells us that, but also experience tells us that. Life gets so busy, and the desire can be so great that unless you keep up prayer, you are certainly either going to give in to desire, or you're going to forget about God when you need to remember God to make the right decision. But the Quran tells us that as well. In the Quran, verse 43, chapter 43, verses 36 and 37, we're told, "And whoever turns himself away from dhikr, from remembrance of God, from the remembrance of the Most Merciful, we appoint to him a shaitan, so he becomes his companion. And most surely they turn him away from the path, and they think that they are rightly guided." So if we turn away from remembrance of God, if we don't remember God as we're supposed to, and if we don't keep up prayer, we're not going to do that, then we have a shaitan with us, and our lives are going to follow that particular pattern, and we are going to regret it. And we're even given a precedent to what happened to people who did that, and this is in the 19th chapter of the Quran, verse 59, and we're told, "But then after them came a evil generation who followed their desires and neglected prayer, and they will meet perdition, they will meet disappointment, they will meet a terrible end." So there's nothing else that we really need to know about this, other than we have to remember God in order to remember what God wants us to actually do at every point in our life, at every decision we make. And in order to remember God appropriately, prayer and fasting are essential too, but prayer especially, because this is a daily requirement. Peace be with you.